forward. Did you want to go ahead and start with your portion of the presentation?
If we can spend like one more minute trying to get everyone in, that would be great.
Once they sign in as attendees, I can make them panelists.
Okay, so a couple people are saying they're waiting for approval. I don't know who that is to.
Vera, you might need to mute. We're getting an echo from you.
I think it's better now. Vera, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, we're good now.
Good.
Okay, I'm going to make CJ a panelist. Or I'm going to make I'm sorry we're having this technical issue. We do really well with it until we don't. We'll just keep looking for people who are joining and try to make them panelists.
Yeah, so CJ, Saranya, Jonathan William. I don't know why that's happening.
So who will be making the presentation this morning?
I'll present it, but is going to speak to it.
Okay, so that's what I'll try to do as much as I can to get them into the meeting. But if you want to go ahead and start with the presentation, that might be good.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there anything you can do on your end to try and mute? Because I don't have any more things I can press to make that feedback stop happening.
You're fine on our end.
I am. Okay. So
Yes.
It's just happening for me. It's weird.
Vera, maybe you signed in twice.
You know what? That is what.
Close that one and see how that goes.
Yeah, so yeah.
Anyone?
Yeah, I think as Sarah said in the chat, you can go ahead and start, Vera.
Yeah, I will. Okay. Give me just a second. All right, do you see a presentation on the screen?
I do not.
Okay.
You're a presenter, so you should be able to share your screen.
Yeah.
Or you're a panelist, so you should be able to share your screen.
Okay. How about now?
Yes.
Okay.
Woohoo.
And is it like full screen?
Yes.
Okay. Here we go.
And as we're kicking things off, we have people who are joining us. I know we're here till 11, but we may need to be a little bit longer. Apologies for the delay. Just for the record, and we've started recording, Vera Giampetro, representatives from the city are here today to give us a presentation on the work that the city is doing. The interdepartmental team in particular is doing both, as you'll see on the screen right now, for both the West Seattle Link Extension and the Ballard Link Extension. And Vera Giampetro from Seattle Department of Transportation is going to be leading that discussion. We will try to resolve whatever technical problems we have and getting a number of people from the city as panelists. I'll be working on that while you present, Vera.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your patience.
Of course, yeah, here we go. So today we're here. This is our City of Seattle Sound Transit 3 West Seattle and Ballard Link Extensions program check-in presentation. This isn't really as robust as our typical quarterly update, but we are very actively working to get together information to share with you all over the next few quarters, and we'll share more about that. And so we have a pretty high level of information to share with you today. Here's our agenda, and the purpose is to sort of give you some high level updates on our interagency work for both the West Seattle Link Extension and the Ballard Link Extension projects, which many of you are familiar with the fact that those have been divided into two projects previously known as the WSBLE, now known as WSBLE and BLE, if you will. So we'll be talking a little bit about the project summary, just reorienting everyone to those two projects, the timelines, and where those projects are going to be built within the city. We'll also talk about the city team composition and the fact that we are very excited to introduce some new staff. We'll talk briefly about some Q1 and Q2 2024 focus areas. And then finally, we'll talk a little bit about the briefings that we have provided both Sound Transit and the city to date, and where this briefing sort of sits in that context, and then what will be coming afterward. So a high-level project summary. Together, the West Seattle Link Extension and the Ballard Link Extension comprise one of the biggest, most significant infrastructure investments in the city's history. Previously and still up to be updated, the two projects together are valued at a cost of more than $12 billion and include more than 12 miles of new light rail track, 13 new or expanded stations, a new light rail only downtown tunnel, and 2 water crossings. And you can see the two projects, a composite map of the two projects on the right side of the screen there. So the project schedule, which many of you are familiar with already, together the West Seattle and Ballard Link extensions were approved by voters in 2016. We are currently in the planning phase, and this is specific to West Seattle Link extension. There was a draft EIS published back in January of 2022, so 2 years ago. And then subsequently the board modified the preferred alternative with the findings from the DEIS. And there was a West Seattle Link extension preferred alternative identified. And from there, Sound Transit moved forward with their final EIS analyses, which they are expecting to share with the public in Q2, Q3 2024. That will also include board action to approve the project and an FTA record of decision. And then we expect city council legislation on adopting the project sometime in 2024 or 2025. So that's for the West Seattle Link extension. For the Ballard Link extension, similar timeline, voter approval, planning. The draft DEIS or the draft EIS was also published in January 2022. At that time, it was a one DEIS for both projects. Has since been separated into 2 environmental processes. And so the Ballard Link extension will have a second DEIS that we're expecting to be published in 2024 or 2025. And then there will be an additional step, final EIS, board action, record of decision, 2025 and 2026. And then we expect city council legislation in 2026. Okay, so City of Seattle team composition. We've shared this in the past at a high level. We are an interdepartmental, often matrixed team structure, although the sort of core leadership of our work is through the Sound Transit program. And that is led by Sarah Maxana, who you can see here, who you can see her sort of place in the SDOT departmental structure. Within the Sound Transit program, we have a project management team that facilitates coordination and strategic direction for our many technical and advisory work groups. And within those work groups, we have an engineering work group, planning, concurrence and mitigation, which is our environmental work, transportation mitigation. A lot of these names probably look familiar to you. We have a permitting work group, engagement and partnerships, an equity coordinator potentially to be hired, and then funding and finance. And there are lots more people beyond this team that are working on the project. These are the folks who are in general dedicated most or all of their time to the Sound Transit program work. And then we do have some new folks who have come onto the team within the last 2 months, which is very exciting. I think folks have been aware that we've been a little bit, doing our best with the limited resources that we have. Liz Sheldon was recently assigned, promoted into this position of SDOT Chief Infrastructure Engineer, and now occupies a leadership role relative to Sound Transit program. And so we are very fortunate to have her guidance and leadership on the Sound Transit program effort. CJ Holt was recently hired as our ST3 program manager. He was on point to lead this presentation today, but hopefully you'll be able to hear from him as soon as he's granted access to the presenter role, and he'll introduce himself when he joins the call speaking role. So he is leading our project management team, which is comprised of myself, the Ballard Link Extension project manager, and then Saranya Guju-Rajan, who's our new West Seattle Link Extension project manager, which is a very exciting addition to our team. And you will be learning more about Saranya.
And Vera, CJ just joined us.
Excellent. CJ, do you want to step in here and take over?
Yes, sure. Thanks for introducing me, and thanks for stepping in, Vera. Appreciate it. You think that we would have this down by now? We've been doing these types of conference calls for what, 3-4 years? But here we are. But yeah, thanks for the introduction, and I'm really happy to be here. As Vera mentioned, I'm the new ST3 program manager. I've been with SDOT for about 10 years working in capital projects. I have been to the design commission on past projects, like Streetcar comes to mind. So I know some of you, but not all. So yeah, appreciate the introduction and happy to be here. Did we get Saranya on, or Jonathan or Katie?
Yeah, do I need to make them presenters too? Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I know we don't have a ton of time, so we don't have to necessarily.
No, they're panelists now. They can talk.
Yeah, do you guys want to just introduce yourselves really quick?
Hi, so I'm Saranya. I am the West Seattle Link Extension Project Manager, recently joined the team less than a month. Before this role, I was in SDCI permitting for a couple of years, and before that I was in consulting, doing a lot of working on transportation projects. I've worked on a lot of Sound Transit projects, and my subject matter expertise is on stormwater grading drainage, and I am looking forward to working with you all. And also I will be leading the staff review panel efforts and supporting STC reviews for WSBLE, for West Seattle Link. Thank you.
Thanks. Jonathan, are you on?
Yeah, I assume you all can hear me okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hey, everyone. Happy to be here. Jonathan Williams. I'm at SDOT and, as Vera mentioned, the new ST3 planning manager role. So coordinating some station area planning, access issues in the right of way, looking outside station areas, sort of broader multimodal connection opportunities and priorities, building on some excellent work that's been underway for a few years. I've been at SDOT for a little over a decade in a few divisions. I've met many of you here, and happy to see you all today. Thank you.
Jonathan. Kate, is Katie on?
I'm
not
in the
sure.
room.
She's here.
I told her.
great.
She's here live.
Camera, so it's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go sit next
Maybe
to my
come
phone.
up here,
Yeah,
yeah.
come up there.
Wait,
Sorry.
is your camera on right now?
Isn't,
Camera.
Oh.
is the camera, the room camera on?
Yes,
Where's
okay.
the room camera?
right there.
Oh, it's right there. Hi. No, it's not. Is it there? Hi, everyone. I'm Katie Hama.
The green light.
Okay, perfect. So I'm the new stationary planning manager for OPCD. Do I need to say anything else? All right.
Katie, come sit next to me. You can,
Oh, I can. It's all okay.
if you want to be on camera.
Okay, thanks. Next slide. I think that's everything for the team composition and some new staff. You know, as Vera said, we're really excited to have everybody. We're excited. You know, as Vera said, we're kind of a small and mighty group. We're kind of the focal point of the project, of the program, but we're reaching out constantly to other divisions within SDOT and other departments within the city. There's probably, I don't know, there's a lot of people involved. I'm not going to hazard a guess to the number, but quite a few folks. The other thing I just wanted to mention, one other member of the team, parametrics. We did hire a consultant, parametrics, to join the group and to provide some staff augmentation for our engineering work group. So they're providing just a great deal of technical support and engineering expertise to the team. We have a couple of staffers that will be sitting in the office, but there's also a larger team that will be working on the project, providing engineering review, support, also doing helping us with some of the station area planning, and maybe some other items as we go. So we're growing, and we're trying to keep on top of this critical project. Next slide.
You lost the slideshow?
All right, here I go again. Hold tight. Can you see it now?
Yep.
Okay.
There you go.
Hi. So this is these are some focus areas for Q1 and Q2 for West Seattle Link Extension, and we have an engagement in early March, and I give it to Nicole to brief about it.
Hi, I'm Nicole Kistler. I'm the Engagement and Partnerships Advisor for both West Seattle and Ballard Link Extensions and ST3 in general. So for this forum happening in early March, we're going to cover design guidelines and development standards and report back both on a survey that we did at the end of the year and on the results of feedback that we got from our first forum. We're also going to talk about permitting in environmentally critical areas. So we're going to look at Longfellow Creek, Pigeon Point, and the Duwamish Crossing, and just talk about the city's role in permitting there and some of the issues in those ECAs. And then we're also going to look at street concepts for Alaska, Avalon, and Delridge.
Thanks, Nicole. So we have the WSBLE preliminary engineering scheduled tentatively in Q2. It's gonna happen in April, May, June, and we also have the SDC Seattle Design Commission reviews for the preliminary engineering work and other project elements in Q2. With exact dates yet to be determined.
And Saranya, this is Michael. Your microphone is a little muted, or there's something, it might be where it's placed. I just wanted you to know that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Okay, now I think Vera and Nicole are going to talk a little bit about Ballard Link extension Q1, Q2 2024 focus areas.
Go for it, Nicole.
All right. So we're working with Sound Transit on planning, like really working jointly together to plan community engagement for the South Downtown Hub. We had a kickoff meeting last November, and then we'll be doing pretty much quarterly workshops throughout the year. This will be our first one, and we're really focusing on aspirational urban design elements that will connect the 3-station hub together. And that will also inform streetscape, like street design. So looking at, you know, if we might want to close some streets or redirect traffic in some way, and just kind of rethink how our streets might function in that area. And then also that will prompt a discussion of trade-offs as well. So it's a pretty exciting workshop that we're headed into, and we've gamified a few things. So it's really illustrative, and I think it's going to be a really exciting workshop.
Sounds very exciting. Thank you, Nicole. And I should have prefaced that by saying, I think the South Downtown Hub might be a relatively new concept to this group. And just to lay out that the hub station grouping are the existing CID station, and then the 2 stations that are proposed for the Ballard Link extension, one to the north and one to the south of the existing station. So one sort of in the vicinity of the existing Pioneer Square station, and one south of the CID station near Dearborn. So that's the 3-station hub that Nicole was just referring to. Okay, and so then the next thing I'll say about the Ballard Link extension work that we have currently ongoing in Q1 and Q2 is a South Lake Union feasibility study. And so for folks who are familiar with the sort of long-standing South Lake Union preferred alternative from the DEIS, which continues to be the preferred alternative for South Lake Union. That station is located at 7th and Harrison. And through some work last summer, it was determined that there are some challenges to that location at 7th and Harrison. There's quite a bit of city light infrastructure in the area. There's also potential for closures on Westlake that are, I think, some stakeholders find very challenging. And so some stakeholders, along with the mayor's office, requested that Sound Transit study an additional concept or potential additional concept for the South Lake Union Station. And that location that's being studied between now and roughly April and May is at 5th and Harrison. So if you're familiar with the Seattle Center campus, I'm sure, Jill, you could tell us all about this as well in great detail. But the location that's being contemplated is between the 5th Avenue Garage and the skate park, with Memorial Stadium right across the street. So in that sort of T intersection location is the thinking. And so we're working with Sound Transit in partnership to help provide technical information and constraints that would establish whether or not this location is feasible, and if so, how to take on the next steps to potentially move that concept into the DEIS. So right now it's really a technical feasibility analysis, and then if feasibility is determined to be validated, Sound Transit will have a series of board meetings between April and May where the board will hear about the feasibility analysis, some trade-offs of this proposed concept, and then consider whether or not they would like to move it into the DEIS. And that is what is going on at South Lake Union. Okay. So then another topic we'd like to share with you is that we have quite a bit of work to do together. So our team with the Design Commission will be spending a lot of time together, we think, around Q1, Q2 to help get us all ready for the Design Commission review process for Sound Transit stations and some non-station elements that the Design Commission is empowered to review and provide feedback on. And when we met last to talk about this process, it was July of 2023. There was a joint presentation between the city and Sound Transit where we shared our work, developing some key tools that we want to share with you and let you make use of in your review processes. And those key tools include the design guidelines that are being developed through our urban design team and OPCD and SDOT. And I think some of you are pretty familiar with those, and we will be sharing more information and more draft materials with you of the design guidelines in the next couple of months. We will also be sharing with you a new tool, the Design Elements Matrix, which is a really helpful reference. We hope that was developed in partnership with Sound Transit, where Sound Transit has identified the review phases where each of a number of discrete design elements will be ripe for review. And so the aim with that tool is to make sure that Sound Transit is communicating proactively about which aspects of the design are ready for input, that the design is still fluid enough to get the input, but not so far along, far enough along that they have a proposal to share with you. So that's an important tool that we'll be sharing with you as well. And then the additional structure of the staff review panel, which we went into in some depth back in July. But at a high level, that's a city staff group comprised of about 5 different staff members. That'll be led by Saranya as the West Seattle Link Extension Project Manager. And the idea is to provide staff support, context, institutional knowledge to the Design Commission reviews, and then to help frame up some of the key issues that the city wants or is hoping that the Design Commission can consider in your deliberations with Sound Transit. And so we will be scheduling time to walk through all of this with you through Valerie and her team. And just for a little bit of background on the briefings that have been presented to date. 2021, there were presentations on the Racial Equity Toolkit and sustainability. In 2022, some of the highlights were transit-oriented development, TOD programmatic presentations, a few station-specific presentations, sort of orienting the Design Commission to the design concepts as they stood in 2022. Presentations on outreach. And then in 2023, there were presentations on the preferred alternatives, the July meetings I mentioned about the Design Commission process and tools. And then most recently, you may recall that Julie Montgomery and her team presented on the station experience design guidelines that Sound Transit has created for use within their own agency. We provided our own city quarterly update, and then Sound Transit also came back in December to share out about their TOD program. So here we are back again, February 1st, and we'll have a lot more to put on this schedule going forward. So I mentioned this already, but our next steps are to return with you next month to engage on Design Commission process and tools for light rail. Subsequent to that, there will be the PE reviews that you will undertake with Sound Transit in partnership with the city. And then an in-depth briefing is expected on South Downtown Hub planning, and all these dates are to be determined. And that wraps up our presentation.
Thanks, Vera. Can you all hear me okay online? Valerie, I don't know how, when you were preparing for today, if you wanted to, and this is also for Jill and Adam, if we were just going to have kind of an open discussion, or were there any kind of topics that you had teed up?
No, actually, we didn't. And so I would just suggest going around the room, just
Or
opening it up.
going around the
Going
screen?
around the
And
screen,
then,
yes.
and then not to dismiss your participation, but we'll start with people on the screen. Now, maybe we'll start with in some sort of alphabetical order. We see Matt first on the left. Matt, do you want to kick us off with anything, any high-level comments or questions you have?
No, I don't. Not right now. I'll just listen to what everyone else says. Thank you.
Okay. Who's next? Why don't we start with Jill? Why don't we start with the chair, Jill?
Okay, keep me on my toes.
We try.
Yeah. Can you go to the two EIS slides? The first one's the Wisley, and the second one's the Blizzly or whatever. Blee, I guess you call it. So what I see here on West Seattle is that the work you're doing now and these briefings that we're doing are potentially going to catch the FEIS. Is that right, Vera? Is that the idea? Or not, Vera? You've got your ballot. But actually, anybody can answer. Because then on the next slide, it looks like with Ballard, there's a second DEIS that you're going to catch things you're doing now. So around the EIS, and let me just ask some specific question. On your org chart, who's your liaison for that? I didn't see that. And secondly, what do you see as the different nature of our input based on where we're going to be working with you this year on these two different environmental processes, with different timings of the process?
Lots of good questions. I don't know, CJ, if you want to take anything on to start.
Yeah, well, I'll just say to start, Amy Chesnick is our main SDOT environmental lead, kind of coordinating with Sound Transit directly on the EIS development and the process. And of course, she has counterparts over at Sound Transit.
Okay.
Amy Chazanoff.
So how will you bring that into these presentations to us? Will Amy come, or how will we inform her work?
I think we can bring Amy into the discussion. I don't know. What do you think, Vera?
I guess to clarify the question, Jill, are you sort of wondering how the design commission would weigh in on things like environmental mitigation or making comments on the DEIS?
Well, I'm thinking that these reviews we have for West Seattle, for instance, are much more specific. Station locations and area, guideway constraints or impacts. And it would seem like we should be commenting on things that are going to be reflected in the FEIS. As compared on the Ballard, I think there's still some alternatives in play. Certainly just talk about the 5th and Harrison one. And I could see that the DEIS that's coming out for Ballard a little bit after the FEIS for West Seattle, we will be giving you input that will show up probably in some still alternatives for electeds to look at and then choose the final route, right?
Right. So
go ahead.
So for the West Seattle Link extension, the the FEIS alternatives are essentially already fixed.
Right.
Because Sound Transit is already very much engrossed in working on the document and preparing themselves to publish. And so there isn't really, aside from being able to make comment after the FEIS is published, there isn't input really that they're asking for at this time from the city. That DEIS process has transpired.
Jill,
Right.
do you mind if I, Jill, do you mind if I play out a scenario? I think is what you're partly asking too, which is there will be a certain amount of presentations that occur before the design commission. The extent to which those presentations inform anything that Sound Transit uses as part of their EIS is one thing. However, the city will also have substantive SEPA authority when the individual projects come on, exercising their authority in the issues that you raise relative to connectivity, rights of way improvements, other things that this body and other people raise might be of high value to the city as they exercise their substantive SEPA authority.
I think that talking into the, this is not my area of expertise, the EIS, you know, mechanics. But what I can say is that there is still plenty of input that's needed from the design commission on design decisions. The EIS, you know, we agree focuses primarily on the impacts of the alignment as it's set, but not on the more detailed conditions that are created for pedestrians, for urban design, you know, like the more fine-grained urban design. And so there's quite a bit still that needs to be, you know, reflected on by the design commission. Really, Sound Transit needed to identify the project location, the transportation impacts, the property impacts, historic resources, all of those sort of key EIS focus areas. But and I think you all already know this, but the more, you know, subjective and close-in type urban design questions are still very much in need of your, you know, your review and your recommendations. I think it's just really important to be clear that for the most part, the EIS process is, you know, checking the boxes to make sure they've analyzed the environmental impacts sufficiently, whereas the design characteristics itself of the station and the guideway, there's still a lot yet to be determined for how those show up at the, you know, the neighborhood scale.
That's great. Then that makes a layer of preliminary engineering on top of that too, because you're showing for West Seattle that the preliminary engineering is complete by
It
quarter
will
two.
be complete this quarter. Yeah.
Quarter one or quarter two is what
Well,
it's saying,
roughly Q. I think it's like, you know, maybe end of Q1, maybe beginning of Q2.
because you got to finish it and then you got to document all of it.
Right.
And so I know that there are still some things in preliminary engineering around the stations in West Seattle that concern us. The station with the cut, is the one that's coming to mind right now. Valerie, help me. I'm probably spacing on some other details. And I think we want to make sure that in the most immediate briefings that are set up that we attend to some of that stuff. Have I got that right, Valerie?
Yeah. Just sort of a timing of comments question and when the PE is complete.
And I think it's just time for us as board members to really, commission members to really understand the separation that's happening between the two different systems and how we have to work at a different level and a different time frame for West Seattle and Ballard if we want to be relevant in these things.
Jill, I think you were also, correct me if I'm wrong, but I was also hearing you say something about how decisions made on West Seattle Link might impact decisions made on Ballard Link because the timeline's so much ahead. And that's something that we are thinking about, particularly in terms of how we're setting design guidelines and development standards and the kind of outreach we're doing to reach out to Ballard Link, which is on a much different timeline now.
No, if I said that, what I was really trying to do is have clarity between the two timelines and the two different projects in some respects. So,
I think it is good to think of the West Seattle Link is ahead, as we know, and the design commission work we're planning on that starting this year. When you get into next year and subsequent years, when these phases start to overlap between West Seattle and Ballard, there will be a ramp up in the work that the design commission will need to take on between the two projects, because there will be work progressing concurrently through what we laid out last when we met is the phases of your review are a PE review, which is what's coming for West Seattle Link and Q2, PE 30% and 60% reviews. And so you'll start West Seattle Link 30%, or excuse me, PE reviews this year. Next year or the year after, we'll start the Ballard Link PE, and then all of that will be marching forward simultaneously in an overlapping fashion. So it sounds like you're wondering, like, what is the strategy for making sure you're able to inform both processes that are moving forward simultaneously, but on slightly different schedules.
And I'm really focused on the near term, Vera, just
Yeah.
how not to get too jammed up.
Yeah.
When I see all of these milestones hitting at the end of 2024.
Yeah.
And how to get in the right time along the way.
Yeah. And I think being super clear on what kind of input you want to provide to to the city, to Sound Transit, that will help orient when to provide that input. I think one example is there will be, as Nicole mentioned, some engagement on the West Seattle Link extension with the public in Q1. And once that's announced by Sound Transit, we would very much welcome design commissioners coming to that engagement activity, seeing what Sound Transit is presenting, and then being able to incorporate that into your thinking when they present to you for your PE reviews.
We should probably we have about 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah. I've asked too many questions. You guys just keep going, Valerie. Sorry.
Yeah.
Should we go to Jay next? Jay?
I mean, I think Jill covered a lot of questions that I had, so I can pass it on to.
You're really quiet.
No questions from me.
Okay. Oh, thank you, Jay. Who's next there? Kevin.
Good morning. First, a lot of familiar names and faces on that org chart. So happy to see that the team is coming together. I just have, and I'll be really quick because I want to make sure everybody has a chance to talk. I just have a couple of comments. If you could go to that last slide, or the sort of the process schedule slide, that would be helpful. The first comment I have, and this came up at the July briefing, but when we get the PE reviews, and I'm still not seeing that slide, by the way.
I'm gonna just cut through and you tell me when.
Okay.
I don't think that's gonna be back here. I think it's gonna be forward. This is.
It's at the very end.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
So when we get the PE reviews, two things that I think are really important. One is that, and we talked about this a lot at the July briefing, so I'm reiterating a little bit, but it's really important that we have the full planning context when we do those reviews, because I mean, that's true of any project we review, but it's especially important for a light rail station. I mean, so just baseline fundamental stuff. What's the zoning of the area? What rezones are potentially contemplated either through the comp plan update or through stationary planning? What are the key redevelopment sites in the adjacent area? And then what are the key access improvements? Because that relates directly to the station entrances, for example. So I know it's great that there's planning work going on, but we haven't been, at least lately, presented with any of that, which is fine, but I think we need to understand some of that when we get the PE reviews. And then second, just based on the broader timeline, I heard that we're getting the PE reviews at a point at which our review is still relevant, right? We can still weigh in when things are still in flux enough that they can be changed or modified or whatever based based in part on our comments, so that they're not coming too late in the game, where it's, you know what I mean? So that's, I mean, so I'm just, as I'm hearing Vera, you saying, well, the PE could be done by the end of Q1 or early Q2, then I'm like, well, when are we seeing that? And how are we weighing in a way that's relevant? So I think hopefully that's pretty clear. So I don't think I need to say more, but I think both of those things are really important so that our review is as helpful as possible to the team and to Sound Transit. So thanks.
And I might have mischaracterized when I say done, PE being done, it's not done and sealed. It's like it's complete to a level where then they can share it with the design commission for your input.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's an important clarification. I appreciate that. Thanks.
And Valerie has shared the requests for all of that planning context and to have those briefings shared with you. I think it makes the most sense to do that outside of the actual review itself, but to have something that leads you into the briefing, or excuse me, into the review, some presentations perhaps from SDOT and OPCD on the growth strategy, the zoning context, that kind of thing. So we've heard that from Valerie as well, and we'll work on that.
Great, thank you.
Anything else, Kevin?
So I probably have a lot to say about all these things, but those are the main things I wanted to say this morning. Looking forward to more to come. Thanks.
Thank you, Kevin. Phoebe.
Hi, I'm gonna go the way of Jay, and I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Such brevity from our commissioners this morning. I'm not sure what to make of that. I think Molly, are you still with us?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I couldn't see you online. Sorry about that, Molly.
Oh, no worries. Any order is fine. It allowed Kevin to ask one of my questions. So thank you, Vera, for the update on the comp plan and sub-area planning updates. So that leaves me with one question. I'm curious if there is ongoing city analysis related to restrooms, retail, and community spaces. So if we've heard from Sound Transit what their policies associated with restrooms are. I'm wondering if there's been assessment from the city side of what the goals are in terms of quantity, whether there's any partnership occurring on, restroom staffing or on filling out retail spaces, or as community engagement happens, if there's interest in community spaces, and if the city would be involved in those longer term if we were asking for them. And so I'm hoping that as we are doing our review of station areas, we have some guidance from the city work that tells us what the overall strategy is in West Seattle and in Ballard, in terms of the specific areas where we want to push for any of those things that may differ from Sound Transit's policies.
Katie, are you still in the room?
Katie had to leave for another
Oh,
meeting.
she did? Okay. Well, I think the short answer is that yes, we are still looking at opportunities for retail, bathrooms, and other amenities, and we're doing that through our work with the planning group and with the OPCD group. So yeah, we've heard that that's critical, and we want to continue working on that and working with Sound Transit to find opportunities, and as you mentioned, outside of Sound Transit as well, to make sure that the city is providing those amenities as requested and as we need.
Fantastic. If we're just able to have updates on that prior to reviewing those station areas, I think it will allow us to better echo your strategy.
Sounds good.
And that's it for me, Michael.
Thank you, Molly. Elizabeth.
Thanks for this. It's really good to see new hires and your planning so far, one of the things that I noticed was that you do have a space open for equity coordinator. And so in the absence of the actual person, I'm wondering about what role that person will be playing going forward throughout all the phases for both Ballard and West Seattle.
Yeah, I'd say the main thing is, working on our racial equity toolkit, which we have, but we want to make sure that that's being updated and at the forefront of the work that we're doing. But in addition to that, the technical tool, also just working, in all facets of the project, making sure that they're involved in engagement, in, planning, in the, discussions with the Seattle Design Commission. It is a critical role. And while we have, folks that can focus on racial equity and incorporate it into our work, having somebody dedicated to that is really important. And so we have, been pushing for this for a while. We have the pocket, the position. There's currently a hiring freeze with the city of Seattle. So we're kind of working through our options to see how we can get that important role filled.
Elizabeth, can I ask a follow-up question? And that is, could you share how the racial equity toolkit might further inform your review and the value that it has for the Design Commission?
Everything. I as I was sitting here listening to some of the conversation, talking about the two projects being slightly different stages, and Michael bringing up SEPA, I would be looking for impacts, both positive and negative. Who's being served, who's being harmed, how certain things are mitigated, who's station area planning. I would be looking at what communities need, what communities desire, but what the needs are, and how this project is changing. I can't imagine anything that we wouldn't be looking at equity on.
And so what I'm hearing is that it's a key piece of information that you would need to do your review.
I think so, and I would want to make sure that happens in all phases, like preliminary engineering. I think there are equity questions that relate to large objects in the landscape, and who's where those happen, who is displaced. Is that helping?
And Nicole, as a practical matter, the Seattle Design Commission has an 8-year-old policy called Equity in the Design of Public Space and Place. That policy lays out really the commission's desire to have a clear understanding about who did you engage, how did you engage them, why them, but more importantly, what's the short line between engagement and outcomes? And those choices hopefully fall from there, and that the community can clearly see, oh, okay, that short line makes very clear. If they were, to the extent to which that engagement plays out in physical improvements that are of particular interest to the commission. Because there may be other programmatic things that a equity lens applied to this program results in programmatic outcomes that may have to do with timing of service and other things that are very important, but not necessarily within the purview of the commission.
That's very helpful. Thank you, Michael.
Can I add a comment? Elizabeth, I just want to speak to, OPCD does have an FTA grant that is funding an equitable communities study that we are working on right now. It will involve 3 major community stakeholder groups. One is a community advisory group that's citywide. We've chosen those individuals as a staff ETOD team. We also have place-based groups in Delbridge and Chinatown International District. And the goal of that process is to put together an equitable transit-oriented development strategy and implementation plan. And our timelines on this have shifted as the project timelines have shifted, but we're we're aiming to have that final plan by Q2 of 2025. So I know it's important to be sure we're providing information to you all as that informs your review. We're having our first convening of the community advisory group, that's the citywide group, likely in February or March. We've been delayed a bit, to be very candid, due to some FTA compliance issues, but that is the intended purpose of this FTA grant, is to explore in a community-driven, community-really designed process how to ensure equitable transit development in the station areas. I would say it's outside of the specific scope of the exact stations, but in those areas.
Yeah, that's helpful. Are you seeing that as a replacement or for this? You're not?
Not at all,
Okay.
no. And that's an SDOT position. I'm an OPCD, but I just wanted to speak to that. You cast a broad net around equity. I want to speak to our remit.
Yeah, just to close the loop, I really appreciate that contribution, Alberta. At SDOT, we also, our Office of Equity and Economic Inclusion, we have a Title VI position. And so that person is working closely with our engagement team. And we're also still in joint conversations with Sound Transit. So the previous racial equity toolkit was a joint agency endeavor. And we have, we've been working internally to continue those RET discussions as we've done further studies in different areas. And so now we're kind of at the point where we're looking at, you know, how we want to apply the RET again. And so that was why I was asking follow-up questions, because I think we have an opportunity as the city right now to inform how that takes shape, and if there's particular information that would be helpful to the SDC. I think that that's something we can provide you with.
Yeah, we do tend to ask about demographics. We do tend to almost always. CJ, I'm wondering if there's anything the Design Commission can bring to this issue of hiring freeze in order to help you have that position filled. I think it's really kind of an emergency.
Yeah. Can we write a letter?
We'll circle and get back to you. But I agree, it is important. It's a critical position, and I do want to just kind of echo what Nicole is saying. You know, it doesn't mean that we're not doing equity work, right? We're not waiting on that. There's still a lot of great work that's happening to support the project.
That's helpful. One of the things that's been a conversation since I've been on the commission regarding this major project is the visuals, basically how this is seen, you know, both from underneath an aerial guideway or from a neighborhood that isn't even otherwise impacted by the project. So we've asked several times for the most up-to-date 3D modeling to be put into use for us and for also the public to see how these large interventions will appear in public spaces from up close, from afar. I'm wondering if there's any progress on that, ensuring that happens. And that's also related to preliminary engineering. That's one of the reasons we're interested in being very engaged in engineering from the get-go and all the way through the project, because that's a very visible infrastructure is a very visible and important part of this project. And seeing it in three-dimensional space and being able to experience what that's going to be like. That makes sense?
Yeah, it sounds like you're asking for visual representation, 3D modeling as much as possible as we get to the reviews, and I think that makes sense. And I think we'll have to work, you know, with the partners at Sound Transit and make sure that we can get as much as possible to you as we move forward into reviews.
I think it'll help. It's on with a whole bunch of different questions and also in community engagement to have, there is the capability. There are multiple capabilities. It's just that being able to insist on that and also have the resources to make it happen. Thanks. That's it for me.
Well, thanks. We're a little bit over, and I just wanted to make sure as we're starting to close, if there was any kind of follow-up questions or statements, either questions from the commissioners or really from the presenting team, which again, we appreciate your time and focus. Sorry about the hiccups. Usually we're getting really good at WebEx, so when we're not very good at it, everything freezes. So
More comments from commissioners?
yeah, our commissioners or
Michael, I do have one quick follow-up.
okay.
So I just wanted to, we spoke briefly about the comp plan and sub-area plan updates. I just wanted to push for us to have those conversations as early as we possibly can so that we're not just kind of reacting to what we know is coming in the comp plan and sub-area plan, but acknowledging some of the timing constraints associated with those plans and the amount of time that the land use development changes take. I just want to make sure that we're being proactive in our consideration for TOD and ETOD in those station areas. And if those comp plan and sub-area plan updates are coming significantly later than our review of West Seattle Link Extension, I want us to be able to work alongside you to think about how we build those conversations into our review process and acknowledge some of the timing challenges around those land use changes.
Okay, thanks for that.
And understood that, CJ, I know that SDOT, in your role within SDOT, the relationship to what OPCD is doing and what other departments may be doing relative to the question about capacity, either current or desired. It's probably a broader question for OPCD, but we have teed that up before, and we're hoping that we get some substantive work to be able to see. Because again, I think, whether or not the city is doing a new comprehensive plan, and that may inform later planning documents, understanding that current capacity may actually be there, that there might not be the need for interventions at the station areas to add capacity if it's already there, but we just don't know yet. And I think that's what some of the commissioners would really like to hear. Anything else before we close?
I just wanted to say thanks for having us. Yeah, sorry about the rocky start to the presentation, but it is really helpful for me and for the team, I think, to meet you all, to hear your questions, concerns. Feel free to reach out anytime independently, and we are really looking forward to getting into the weeds and advancing this process and moving forward with you all.
And commissioners, you don't necessarily know this, but CJ has been before us a number of times in different roles with streetcar, a couple of other projects. So when we saw that he was joining the SDOT team in this role, his understanding about what the commission does and our obligations as stewards of the public realm, the fact that CJ understands this role and the things that we're going to be wanting to hear about is very helpful. So we're glad you're with us, CJ.
CJ was also the PM on the Westlake Protected Bike Lane, which is an awesome project.
Yeah.
One of my favorite projects that the city has done in the last 10 years. So yeah, CJ, welcome to the team.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
Well, thank
I'm
you
excited
for
to be here.
Thank you for pulling this together, considering all the new staff and how you're trying to all start working together. And yeah, we look forward to the PE reviews starting in April, and we've got a bit to do before then.
All right, with that, I think if there's nothing else, Jill, on your end, I think we're done. Hearing nothing from the chair. Thanks, everybody.
Great, thank you, Vera.
Thank
Take care.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Vera had another meeting.
Stayed on.